apocryphal gospel. It's in this collection that he has there. I've given it to you. You can read it. And it says what it says. It's considered to be Gnostic. But again, this is another whole discussion. And I want to move along in Acts. Let's see. For John indeed baptized with water, but you shall be baptized with the Holy Spirit. Josephus' description of John, he says that John's baptism was a water baptism, provided that the soul was already previously cleansed by the practice of righteousness. I suppose that to some extent is what's meant by baptism by the Holy Spirit, cleansing the soul by the practice of righteousness, in that context. Of course, the Gospels claim that Jesus taught baptism with the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit descended on Jesus, and Paul teaches Holy Spirit baptism. I will say, if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you look at the community rule in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I don't have my pen here to write on the board, so I can't do anything. Community rule, okay? If you look at the community rule, you will find that there is Holy Spirit type of baptism in the community rule, along with water baptism. So, in other words, again, it does speak about the Holy Spirit cleansing your soul in the way Josephus speaks about John, either before or after you immerse yourself in streams, rivers, or pools, and so on and so forth. So baptism in the scrolls, water baptism, is not an initiation into a community, it's a purification of the body. And then the Holy Spirit is mentioned. You'd have to read that material in the community rule if you want to know more about it. Never mind. Certainly John the Baptist is associated with some sort of, I don't like to use the word baptism because it means in Christianity coming into the community. So I would think some sort of ritual immersion, some sort of water, Essene type ritual immersion practice, bathing, purification practice. That's what John was known for clearly, and I think all the sources agree on that anyway. So I would accept that that had something to do with what he represented, that is some sort of immersion practice. And I honestly think that John is not to be disassociated from the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls have too much in common with the little we know about John to think that they could have both been out in the wilderness and not either been influenced by each other or known by each other. You know, if you go out to Death Valley, anyone hanging out in those nooks and crannies out there knows about each other. They're not people out there that, oh God, you've been out here for 20 years, so have I. No, I don't think so. You know, these people all know each other, and that area is quite small. And John couldn't have been doing anything that the Essenes out there were not aware of, and vice versa. And to my mind, they're all the same. So all this is just that different people are looking at him with different vocabularies and different points of view. So when we find documents like the scrolls that resemble John, what we know about him, and also are called Essene, then I think we have to go to the scrolls to understand what people like John really were teaching and representing in more detail. That is, the scrolls are a vast body of literature, so we have a much vaster picture, not just a one-sentence George Bush type sentence. You know, it's hard work. It's hard work. Not just that. You know, if I were George Bush, I would be explaining to the American people why I went into Iraq, what it means, but his mind can't go that far because he can't get abstract thoughts. He's dyslexic, I think. I don't hold it against him. But so these capsule descriptions, John baptized with water, you'll be baptized with the Holy Spirit, it just repeats, it's the talking point. That he's always on a talking point. It's the talking point that they repeat, but it's not detailed. It's not all. He just didn't go around saying, I baptized with the holy water. I baptized with water. I baptized. No, he had much vaster orientation, and I think that's what the scrolls flesh out, which is why I think the scrolls are so unique and a time capsule into the past. Okay, so mentioning John the Baptist, and I guess John is still talking here, and then a cloud hid him from their eyes. Or that's Jesus at this point, perhaps, on line 9. 2 men stood before them in white clothing. I guess this is in the tomb here. And they said, "Men, why do you stand looking up in the heavens? This Jesus," oh, this is before his ascension, I guess. After he was walking around for 40 days, then he got taken up in a cloud. And again, the 2 men in white, Galileans, whatever that means, and Eusebius Galilean is another name for, as you may recall, the Zealot movement founded by Judas the Galilean. Here the thrust, as in the Gospels, is a geographical thrust, but still Galileans. It's odd that it probably might not have additional significance. I think it probably did. Not just a geographical significance, as the Gospels perhaps would have it, and as Luke doesn't say what Galileans means here. Anyway, they stand here. I like to look at all references to standing in these things. Because of the Pseudo-Clementine recognitions and other documents that show that the teaching of these individuals from an Ebionite background and other Palestinian pre-Christian or quasi-Christian groups referred to the Messiah as the standing one. The standing one, and he gives the dimensions of some vast dimensions of some kind. And stand up in Hebrew often has to do with being resurrected. So you could say a standing one can be the resurrected one. Because if you know the prophet Ezekiel in the bones vision, when he goes and comes and sees the valley full of bones, and it's the whole people of Israel, their hope is all gone, and Ezekiel calls the wind, and they put breath in them, and they stood up, he said. A vast and immense army. They stood up. And that's the word for resurrection in Ezekiel. So I think this standing has a lot of more importance than people give it. So when they said 2 men stood, they're always standing, as you notice. In the tomb, they stand. The angels are standing, or Jesus, or Mary Magdalene suddenly sees Jesus standing behind her. And it's always standing, like the standing one. So I like to catalog all these allusions to standing. I think they mean more than one thing, and that's why you probably need to have a Greek version of the material as well as an English one to see if it's the same.